For a more complete story of the beaver, why not contact the Canadian Wildlife Service in Ottawa?
Well, hello there. Today we're going to be taking a look at Steve Shives' video, 5 Stupid Things About Online Harassment. Do 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 do.
Its importance is frequently minimized. A survey by the Pew Research Center released last year found that 73% of internet users have witnessed someone being harassed online, and 40% have experienced it themselves. And yet, so often, online harassment is reduced to an unavoidable but insignificant aspect of life on the internet, something that doesn't warrant a serious response and is just best ignored.
Yeah, and this is because there's groups of people, and maybe you're not one of them, who want to group things like "you're a poopy head" with threats of violence and stalking. And when this happens, the term online harassment becomes meaningless and loses all importance. It tells us nothing about what's going on. It could be either a big problem or a small problem.
What people who hold this view don't realize or willfully deny is that the damage done by online harassment is not limited to temporarily wounded egos or hurt feelings.
Limited? No. However, most commonly, yes.
It causes real harm. The amount of emotional damage caused by online harassment varies depending on the person experiencing it and the severity of the harassment itself.
Steve, you're absolutely correct. There are some people that will experience the most benign levels of online harassment, and it'll be a huge problem for them. And there will be some people that experience huge levels of online harassment, and it doesn't bother them in the slightest.
For some who experience it, the effects are minimal and fleeting. For others, they can be seriously traumatizing. And by the way, the snide dismissal by those who perpetrate or defend online harassment of the emotional damage that it can cause to those who experience it is disgusting and inexcusable.
For my part, I would be very dismissive and probably even take a snide jab at someone who took huge offense because someone said their chocolate chip cookie recipe sucked. However, at the same time, I would take a threat of rape or physical violence extremely seriously. So, Steve, we can see that online harassment runs from the inane to the very serious. As such, I don't think it's rational to make a broad-based rule that encompasses all of them.
And that's just the emotional damage. It can cause harm in other ways. It can tarnish reputations, disrupt businesses, ruin relationships, drive people to suicide, or lead to in-person harassment and violence.
Yeah, they totally can. They be perpetrated by seemingly nice people.
And while people of all kinds can be targets of online harassment, it disproportionately affects young women. While the Pew survey found that men are actually more likely overall to experience some form of online harassment, it also found that women ages 18 to 24 are much more likely to experience some of the most severe forms of harassment, such as cyberstalking, sexual harassment, or sustained harassment.
So, Steve, I've brought up the Pew results that I believe you're referencing in your video, and when I look at it, the most common forms of harassment, like you say, are experienced by men, those being called offensive names and purposefully embarrassed. However, let's set those aside for a moment. I'd like to talk about the remaining 4 categories, which are the more serious claims of online harassment. So let's take this group and let's add up the scores between men and women, and I know this is not exactly right, but it's good enough. Men come in with a score of 28, women come in with a score of 29, which indicates about 0.25% difference between the two genders. But what's important to note is that only one of these categories is actually 100% a crime. That's physical violence.
The survey found that 26% of women in this age group have been stalked online, compared to just 7% of men in the same age group and 8% of all internet users.
Wait a second, what you're describing sounds absolutely nothing like the data that I've showed. Oh wait, you must mean this one. Wow, those numbers are all over the place. Well, maybe it's because of this. And maybe because of this. So yeah, you might want to check your data before posting, Steve.
Additionally, Danielle Keats-Citron, the author of the book Hate Crimes in Cyberspace, found that 70% of women who play online multiplayer games choose to play as a male character to avoid abuse and harassment.
Yeah, that hasn't been my experience at all in MMOs. Kind of odd.
The particular victimization of women is something else that is minimized or denied by those who want us to treat online harassment like it's no big deal. And that is yet another reason why such people can go fuck themselves, as far as I'm concerned.
Fuck you and your minimization Pew Research Group, you sons of bitches.
Those who incite it deny responsibility. Sometimes online harassment is the result of an individual or a group attacking a deliberately chosen target. Perhaps the most well-known such target is Anita Sarkeesian, the feminist video game critic who has been the primary obsession of the misogynistic hornet's nest known as Gamergate.
While I don't know much about Gamergate, I will say that Anita's arguments are pretty much all bullshit. So while some people might think that a lot of people pointing this out to Anita is harassment, I don't think so. That being said, I'd also be completely against physical threats or sexual threats or any sort of real harassment that's going her way. Now, because I don't know much about Gamergate, I'm going to nix the part of the video where he talks about it because I can't reasonably comment.
Victims are expected to fix it themselves. Maybe you should just unplug for a while. How many times have we heard this well-intentioned but utterly misguided advice offered to people who have been affected by online harassment? It may be practical from a certain point of view, but it still amounts to victim blaming.
So, as long as they're affected by online harassment, or what they view as online harassment, then we can't put any responsibility on them for their feelings. Nobody can point out that someone has a disproportionate response to something said to them online. That's victim blaming.
Oh, you've been bullied or harassed online? Maybe the solution is for you to stop using the internet. Yes, I really think we need to defer to the bullies on this one. I mean, what the hell is that?
No, it means we have to realize what the internet actually is, which is a collection of people with lots of different thoughts and lots of different ideas. And with that comes a lot of different ways that people interact with one another. To one person, something said might seem like a playful jab. To another person, they might take grave offense. What you're proposing is to place the lowest common denominator on the value of offense taken by an individual. And if we were to adopt that, the internet would not have any ideas whatsoever. It would have no speech, because invariably someone would be offended by it.
Then there are those who dispense with tact and empathy altogether and just say shit like, you just need to grow a thicker skin. You need to stop letting things like this get to you so much.
Because there's absolutely no scenario ever where that would have been reasonable advice. Never. No one is ever too sensitive. It doesn't happen.
One more time to people who say such things, on behalf of everyone who has ever been harmed emotionally or otherwise by online harassment. Fuck you.
Oh my god, how could you say that to me? I'm feeling so horrible right now. Like, what sort of person are you? I mean, this is really, really serious.
How victims react to harassment is not the problem. Harassment is the problem. It shouldn't be tolerated ever, nor should those who perpetrate it or enable it.
Steve, come on, man. You make this way too easy.
The hardest part is only picking 5. Catch you next time.
I think what Steve means to say is the hardest part is picking 5 reasonable, well-researched arguments. Thanks again for watching. Please be sure to subscribe, share with your friends, or comment. It is very much appreciated. Have a great one.